We got to talk about this Spider-Man No Way Home movie. Just saw it last night. It was pretty good. I'm gonna be honest with you. It was good. It was fun. It was a fun movie to watch. Just gonna do a review on it, give you my ideas. Yeah, let's just go ahead and get right into this. So, just so you guys have some background on where I come from this, I am a hardcore Spider-Man fan. I do not admit to reading all the comics, but I am. As the days go on, the more comics I read. So I'm actively reading them. I've been actively reading them for the past couple years or so. Expanding more so on all the other Marvel characters in the comics and whatnot. Watching videos, watching summaries, reading them, getting the content, and that kind of stuff. So, I am a avid comic reader, I would say. So that's where I come from, And I'm just gonna go ahead and say this: the same way how people will complain, because one of my friends, he's a really big Naruto fan. The same way the people will complain about how kids will say, like, they'll see a picture of Sasuke and say, "Oh, isn't that one character from Fortnite?" and they get pissed off. Yeah, that's the same way where everyone thinks that the Avengers are everything in Marvel just because of the MCU. They think everything Marvel has to offer is in the MCU and nothing else. So that same level of ignorance is kind of annoys me. So that's where I come from. Let's go ahead and get in this review. So first off, what did I enjoy with this movie? And I think I want to start with the enjoyments because that's honestly going to be the shorter list. I'm going to spend way less time on that. But to be fair, it was a good movie, if I'm being honest with you. What I did enjoy, obviously, the nostalgia of seeing Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire working alongside Tom Holland. That was really fun to watch. Their banter back and forth, really funny. Talking about the organic webs and all the different differences in the timelines and that kind of stuff. Seeing all the new characters, the old characters, really fun to watch. The writers over at Marvel just do a good job with the jokes that they have. Um, as much I don't really care for Zendaya and you know Ned, Tom's friend in the MCU, they are funny. I'll give them props. They're funny. They're funny to watch interact. It seems like they're awkward, funny high school kids. So that's fun to watch. Um, it's just a fun movie. You can't honestly can't sit in this movie and not smile and laugh and be engaged. It's a good fun movie to watch. And honestly, if you turn your brain off and just watch the movie and enjoy it, you're gonna come out thinking this is like an amazing movie. And if that's what you do, then congrats. You think it's gonna be a 10 out of 10? Would recommend. That's the good parts of the movie. Also, I'll get into this a little bit later, but I just want to say this. I actually have an opinion. I actually question things I see. So if you start asking any questions, this movie starts to fall on its face in a lot of different ways. But like I said, turn your brain off, and you'll enjoy it. But I don't watch movies like that. I actually have my brain running, asking questions. I actually was doing that during the movie. I think some of my friends got annoyed because I kept asking questions that kind of poked holes in the plot, which kind of might have ruined the experience for them. So I do apologize. But that's just how I operate. But yeah, if you're the type of person who turns your brain off when you watch movies, you'll enjoy this. Now on to the last thing I really liked about this movie, the Green Goblin. Now, the Green Goblin is in my opinion the best villain ever written. He's the goat villain. William Dafoe's Green Goblin, specifically in movies, is definitely top five, top four maybe. But in overarching, like if we're talking about all superhero content, both DC and Marvel, uh, um, Green Goblin's number top two, 100% top two. Probably only outclassed by Joker. That's the only person I think you could make a solid argument for, be who outclasses him. Everyone else, I mean, you can make arguments for, but I honestly won't agree with you. If someone made a solid argument with Joker being the best villain in all superhero comics or superhero stories in general, I couldn't win. I can't win that argument. I already know that for a fact. But every other character, I'm pretty sure I could make a compelling argument that would be in Green Goblin's favor. So, from a pragmatic standpoint, he's number two behind Joker, but from a bias standpoint, he's number one in my opinion. But this movie finally gave Green Goblin credence, and this is one of the things that if you just watch the MCU and don't actually read the comics at all, you're never gonna understand why Green Goblin is the GOAT, because he is the same level of Joker in the Batman as he is with Spider-Man, right? And this movie does a great job. First off, he was absolutely bodying Tom Holland. Like when he picked him up, and then Spider-Man was like trying to use his elbow to like break his grip, and then Willem Dafoe just like laughing at him, and then just slams him through the ground, and then throws him out the building, and then I think Lizard throws him back in, and then Willem Dafoe catches him and then throws him down like threw 6 stories of concrete to the bottom floor and then killed his aunt. Like that's the next level, bro. First, people don't really understand that Green Goblin is like super strong. If for those who don't know, his transformation to the Green Goblin basically gave him superhuman strength. So in the MCU, if you know how strong Captain America is, yeah, the Green Goblin is at least that strong, if not stronger. So when Captain America ripped apart the log with his bare hands, caught the helicopter and didn't let the Winter Soldier fly off, and like caught the spear that got thrown out. Yeah, Norman Osborn could probably do all of that, and probably more than that, because I'm pretty sure that Green Goblin is stronger than Cap. If we're just looking at like raw strength, he's a next level threat.
So a quick thing, I'm making the video right now. I just forgot to add this point in. The Green Goblin, especially in different versions of the comics, takes on many different forms. Specifically, my favorite form for the Green Goblin is actually in the Ultimate Universe, where essentially instead of him being like the Norman Osborn, where he has like crazy traits, where he has like a split personality and looks like a normal human just with superhuman strength and on a glider, he pretty much transforms the same way like Bruce Banner transforms into the Hulk. He legit imagine the Hulk except with no hair, has horns, and can throw fireballs out of his hands. That's pretty much the Green Goblin in the Ultimate Universe, and that portrayal does a really nice job just displaying how powerful this individual is. So that if that gives you more context, across all the comics, he usually takes that number one villain role. But again, just to show you how powerful the Green Goblin is supposed to be and being like the major threat, look at the Ultimate Universe. That's one of the better portrayals of how brutally strong the Green Goblin is.
By far the ultimate arch rival, the number one villain that gives Peter Parker the most trouble, not only in combat but also like in his personal life. And that's the whole point of how he's written. Like a little bit of a rant here, but the whole way that the Green Goblin is supposed to be written is like he is the equivalent of that one person in like a plant the bomb mission that just doesn't play objectives but just headhunts one other person because he wants to make that person's life a living hell in that lobby. That's basically what Green Goblin does with Spider-Man. That's his whole motivation, and it might seem like, oh, it's a cop out because he doesn't have an origin story. He doesn't have a reason to do what he's doing. He's just doing it for like a stupid reason. If you think about it from a pragmatic standpoint, like, and actually turn your brain off for a second, it's actually ingenious. It's almost the same way how like Batman can never really get rid of Joker unless he kills him, which goes against his entire mentality. That's basically what the Green Goblin is to Peter Parker. The same way that the Batman is the way he defeats his villains is like with sheer fear of like terror of who the Batman is. That doesn't work on Joker. Joker's like, yeah, the only way you're gonna stop me is kill me, and I know you can't do that, so I'm just gonna keep on going. And like, you can put me in prison, I'll just break out and like kill more people and make your life terrible. And like, the only way you're gonna be able to stop me is to go against your principles as a villain, and I still win. So Batman can't win. That's the same thing with Green Goblin and Spider-Man. Spider-Man, his whole point is like he's the kind of person who's trying to be a peacekeeper. He's always trying to look out for the small person. He doesn't want to kill villains. He doesn't have. He's trying to like have them turn a new leaf. Use his power to make other people better. He can't do that with Green Goblin because he doesn't have a motivation. With the Sandman, for example, the Sandman was really just trying to help his daughter out. So the whole thing. And he like turns a new leaf whenever Spider-Man forgives him in the movies, the original Tobey Maguire, Sam Raimi movies. And this one, he's like, oh, I can fix them, and then if I take away your powers, you guys are going to be able to have normal lives and be good people, good citizens. That doesn't work with Green Goblin because the Green Goblin's like, yeah, I want to keep my powers because that helps me make your life worse. Like in the original comics, the Green Goblin gets his powers, legit sees Spider-Man like on a TV ad or in the newspaper and is like, that's my target. I'm going to dedicate my entire life's work to making this man so miserable that he basically wants to commit suicide. Or if not, I'm going to kill him myself. That's his whole motivation. And how is Spider-Man supposed to like argue with someone whose entire existence is based around making your life worse, and like he just enjoys watching the world burn? Like there's no redemption to that. People that just want to see the world burn, they're too far gone, and Spider-Man can't save him, right? So that's what makes him the ultimate villain in this one. So other than like the other guys who might have redeeming features that can be like thwarted or like turned to the good side, maybe possibly not an option with Green Goblin. Also, he like targets Spider Man. He outsmarts him. He's in some ways a little bit smarter. He's the first villain to actually figure out his secret identity. He's one of the only villains that actually targets his personal life and family. Targets Aunt May. Targets Gwen Stacy. We already know he kills Gwen Stacy in the original comics, and there's a couple other darker ones where he like either sleeps with Mary Jane or it's either Mary Jane or Gwen Stacy, where Norman Osborn sleeps with them and he gets them pregnant and like ruins that whole family. Like he not only is he like trying to kill Spider-Man, he's also a homewrecker. Like, can you imagine? That's a whole nother level of like traumatization, bro. So, anyways, that like if that just goes to show how great of a villain and how much of a threat he is as Spider-Man. And I think just showing how Green Goblin was the most powerful OP villain in this entire movie. Just when he killed Aunt May, smashing, just giving Peter the absolute work, giving Tom Holland the absolute work in that movie. Like, it's insane. We just had a small little tidbit, like a couple of scenes here and there that just cemented him as the GOAT. So I did appreciate the movie giving credence to Green Goblin and making him look so good. One of the top villains, I think, in the MCU to date. Killmonger was really good. Oh, they had a lot of weak villains, I'm being honest. Killmonger's the only one good one I remember off, recently. Thanos obviously was pretty good, but, Ultron was kind of weak. Loki was kind of weak in the first Avengers movie. But Green Goblin, he was legit. He was one of the top ones, and that's crazy because he's not even Tom Holland's villain. Like, one of the top villains in the MCU is not even an MCU villain. That just tells you something right there about which Spider-Man's the best. Alright, so now on to the things I didn't like. Now, like I said before, if you turn your brain off and just enjoy the movie for what it is, you'll say it's a 10 out of 10, right? But if you actually think, then you're going to realize that it doesn't make sense. First off, the whole multiverse thing, it doesn't really make sense how these characters get here. First off, the caveat that, these characters are going to die when they get sent back to their new timeline. Well, if we remember what they said in Endgame, again, I have to see this exact clip to make sure I'm not misquoting it. But from what I remember is that whenever they went back to get the Infinity Stones, they're not rewriting their own history. They're basically making an alternate reality. They're making a new branch, basically another parallel universe in the multiverse of universes, right? A new branch. So basically, it's like a fork. You have one where life continues on basically where it is without the Avengers, because they went to the new branch where they got the Infinity Stones and fixed everything, if that makes sense. So it like branches off in two different ways. So I'd imagine it would work similarly in this one as well, especially since the time stone no longer exists. It's been destroyed with the snap. We can't just rewrite history, especially in a different universe, right? Where I guess the Infinity Stones probably don't even exist. Well, I guess they do. So that's another thing. Like, are you basically saying all universes are the same because the Avengers aren't in every single universe, so we don't even know if like the Infinity Stones are in every single universe? So how would Infinity Stones apply to universes without them? It's confusing. And they make you do all these mental gymnastics yourself to justify how it works, which doesn't make sense. But like I said, with the villains going back to their timeline, I would imagine like them going back, even if they didn't have their powers, wouldn't necessarily fix anything. Either the timeline would continue on without them, so they would return at a later date, or when they return, it would just make another fork in the road where their original, universe continues on without them or with them, but they still die, and then there's a new one where they live. So you're not really saving them; you're just basically making a new copy of them, right? And then this goes back to the thing Doctor Strange said: like, there's an infinite amount of these guys. Like, don't get caught up over just one of them, but he does anyway because I guess it's something Spider-Man would technically do is get caught up over the small things, but in this situation, it's stupid. It really is stupid. Another thing, the caveat is everyone that knows who Peter Parker is Spider-Man. I know this because that's what Doctor Strange said. Everyone that knows Peter Parker is Spider-Man got brought into this universe. Well, that makes sense for Doc Ock. It makes sense for Sandman. It makes sense for William Dafoe. It does not make sense for Electro, right? There's no reason Electro should be in this movie because, as far as we know, Jamie Foxx never found out that Andrew Garfield or Peter Parker was Spider-Man. He just hated Spider-Man because he thought he was a fraud, right? And we know this because whenever Andrew Garfield approaches Jamie Foxx after he gets his electricity taken away, he's like, "Man, I always thought you'd be black," right? So that just proves he never knew who Peter Parker really was, because if he did, he would know he'd be white. So he technically should never be in this universe anyways. And then Tom Hardy, Venom, when he goes to the bar and just to introduce the new Venom to this universe, he doesn't have a Spider-Man in his universe. So how is he supposed to be transported here if he doesn't even have a Spider-Man? It doesn't know Peter Parker. And even if he did, even if there's a Spider-Man in the Sony universe, then like there would have to be, in the Venom ones. Which so if they're gonna make a new Venom movie, then they need to eventually introduce Spider-Man because there's a Spider-Man in that universe by this law. Um, even if he never met him. We never saw him meet him. So maybe he's met him on like Instagram or something. Like again, there's no reason for Tom Hardy to be in this universe, which means there's no reason Venom should be in this universe. But they just wanted to add that one cutscene where Venom gets added into the MCU so he can have the black suit. So there's that. But again, too many mental gymnastics. The only way you could technically justify this is that say that the symbiote transcends the multiverse the same way like magic alters all the multiverses. The way the same way the stones can alter different multiverses. The symbiote, the way it is in the comics, is that the symbiotes are like kind of sentient, and different symbiotes can like communicate with each other. So maybe it's like the symbiotes from different universes in the multiverse can communicate with each other. So since the Venom in Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and Spider-Man 3 knew that Peter Parker was Spider-Man, that somehow Tom Hardy's Venom also knew that that Peter Parker was Spider-Man because reasons, and they can communicate. Like again, I have to justify this because Marvel's too lazy to do it themselves. So that's another issue. Too many mental gymnastics. Reason number 2 I didn't like this movie is because it took them three. It can be boiled down to this one statement. It took them three movies for them to finally get through Tom Holland's thick skull that with great power comes great responsibility. And that's the main reason why Tom Holland is the worst Spider-Man out of all the three. And I love how everyone's like, oh, we don't want another origin story. The MCU is popular because there's no origin story for Spider-Man. We just got an origin story spanned across 3 movies, spanned across 9 hours of content. You do just realize that, right? More than 9 hours, because he was in like cameos in like Endgame, Infinity War, and Civil War, bro. It took him that long. He should have known this whole with great power comes great responsibility since before Civil War started, bro. Back in like 2014, 2015, whenever that movie came out. He should have been known this for the past 6 years, but no, he just didn't know for whatever reason. But it's dumb, bro. It's dumb, right? He doesn't hear that with great power comes great responsibility thing until Aunt May dies. And if you think back to this, and to all the other Spider-Man movies in the MCU, he's just acting like a irresponsible child. And that's not who Peter Parker is. He's supposed to be responsible, supposed to take responsibility for his actions, make personal sacrifices for the greater good of mankind, which he never does in any of these movies. Think back to Homecoming. What's the whole idea behind Homecoming? He fought in Civil War. Now he's feeling hot about his britches. He's like, hey, Mr. Stark, I can really help. I can be in the next Avenger. And then Mr. Stark's like, nah, kid. Live a normal life. Go back to what you're doing. I just wanted your help for this one thing. For the Civil War initiative, whatever. I forget what the initiative was they were trying to get assigned, but I just need your help. Just stopping Cap this one time. It's over. Just go back to being your friendly neighbor Spider-Man, stopping, cat burglars, stopping pickpocketers in Queens and New York and that kind of stuff. But no, he has to be too big for his britches, gets into a whole bunch of different trouble, makes a fairy gets separated, and eventually, it just makes the situation a lot worse. His whole thing there, he couldn't be responsible, couldn't just take the advice of his superiors, of the people in control over him, the ones he looks up to, and just listen to their advice. He just had to do things his own way, right? He was being irresponsible, caused a lot more problems than needed to be caused, and just made a stink of everything because he wanted to impress Tony Stark so he could be the next Iron Man, pretty much. And then in No Way Home, again, I've seen spoilers. I haven't seen the actual movie, but I've heard the spoilers. Right, the whole idea behind No Way Home is that he's finally gotten this role as the next Iron Man. Right, Iron Man's dead, so now he has to like live up to being the next Iron Man. The whole thing where he was like, "Oh, I want to be the next Iron Man." Well, now you got it because Iron Man's gone in Endgame. Now you're the next one up, right? So he's getting employed by Nick Fury to do all these jobs. He's like, "But I want to hang out with Mary Jane. I want to be with Mary Jane. I want to go on the trip with Mary Jane. I want to be with my girlfriend. I just want to live a normal life." Like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Like, you're either in the Avengers and do this as a full-time job the same way like Tony Stark invested a whole lot of time in protecting you, making sure your suits were up to date, going around protecting the world, making sure these intergalactic threats were taken care of, right? All the diplomacy. You can either be the next Iron Man, or you can be what Iron Man told you to be, is a normal high school kid, and you kind of already forfeited that. So now you just gotta suck it up and do your job. And at the end of that one, I guess with an unfortunate series of events, his secret identity gets spoiled that he is, he's Peter Parker. And then what's in the third one? Instead of he goes through all these mental gymnastics and breaks the multiverse because his friends don't get into college. And he probably would have done the same thing if they all didn't get into the same college. Like, let's say he got into, I don't know, he got into like Purdue, and then his other two friends got into like, Ned got into UC Berkeley and chose to go there, and then MJ's the only one that goes to MIT, right? He probably still would have gone to Doctor Strange. First off, can you like erase everyone's mind and go back in time and fix it so I can go to school with my friend and girlfriend? And like Doctor Strange, like, did you actually talk to them like a normal person? Like, I mean, no, I thought to change the fabric of time, and then he gets kicked out for being stupid. This whole movie was predicated on him not being smart enough to suck it up and just deal with the fact that people know who he is. His life wasn't even that bad. He wasn't serving jail time. None of his family members or friends were serving jail time. There was a couple, social media, issues here and there where he was getting targeted, but the same thing with everything. It would have died down eventually. Give it like a couple months, and it just so happened that it was like over the next, it was just so happened it was when he was, applying to get into college. And if you just pleaded his case like a normal person, like, hey man, I am just trying to be a normal person. I'm still a high school student. I still want to get a college education. I'm qualified. I'm just because I have superpowers doesn't mean I should be discriminated against. He probably would have gotten the job. He probably would have gotten in at least somewhere. You're telling me that he wouldn't have been able to get into cool school anywhere? He could have gone to like community college for a couple of years and then reapplied to MIT later, right? Or just gotten a job or worked a minute. He doesn't have to go to college, right? He is Spider-Man, so he can monetize that. He works with the Avengers. He has connections. He just could forego all of that because he didn't get into MIT and saw Flash dancing in front of him. So he ruins all this. So just irresponsible, an irresponsible brat. And here's the funny part: he ends up even worse off before. He still doesn't get into MIT. Friends still can't be with him, but now he doesn't have his Aunt May because his Aunt May died, and now no one remembers him. And the next thing, it took him. Not only did it take him Aunt May getting killed in the stupidest way possible, he could have like easily helped, pushed Aunt May out of the way or done something, warned her not to get hit with the glider or something, instead of just watching her get hit with the glider and then dying. It took his Aunt May dying, but not also only that, it took two other Spider-Men from a different universe telling him, hey man, we've suffered loss too, it's not worth going to the dark place. But it also took Tobey Maguire stopping him from impaling the Green Goblin to realize that with great power comes great responsibility. Because he just took that just went in one ear and out the other. The whole thing on the top of the school where he's like, yeah man, I'm gonna do better, but I'm not gonna get revenge. And then he sees Green Goblin's like, I'm getting revenge, bro. He was just lying through his teeth, acting like a child, a spoiled brat, bro. Couldn't be responsible, bro. Acting on impulses. That's what makes him the worst. So, anyways, that's the main issues with the whole Tom Holland thing. It took way too long for him to figure out these core values of Spider-Man. Like, he should have grown up the same way, Andrew Garfield or, Toby did, where they didn't need to go through this multiverse, all this other kind of escapade, like, loop, jumping hoops and all that other kind of stuff, just to figure out the great power comes with responsibility. They got that off the bat at the first time they messed up. He should have figured out with great power comes with responsibility, in the first movie. Heck, he should have figured it out before Civil War, but no, he just couldn't. So, biggest issue right there, he's acting like a child. I guess now eventually, like, I can technically call him Spider-Man now because he eventually did learn how to be Spider-Man. But like I said, it took 3 movies for him to actually become Spider-Man, right? Where he's actually like taking responsibility, making personal sacrifices for the greater good. Like, that's the whole point of Spider-Man. You know how like in Civil War, where the whole idea behind Civil War is like, hey, we're saving the world and all, but we're also like making the world like a lot worse for the everyday person because we're not taking into consideration the casualties, the overarching crazy amount of casualties that we cause and collateral damage we cause as the Avengers. Yeah, that doesn't exist with Spider-Man because Spider-Man will legit stop fighting the villain just to save like a kid from getting crushed by the rubble. Heck, he will let the villain get away to save a kid getting crushed by the rubble. And we know what happens there. J. Jonah Jameson goes on the internet. Spider-Man lets the villain get away again. Are they in cahoots? Takes all this negative press. People hate him because he saved this little kid. But he does that because the little kid's gonna be eternally grateful that he got his life saved and didn't get crushed by like an I-beam or like impaled with rebar, right? The first time in the comics, the original comics, when Dr. Connors gets turned into the lizard, he doesn't fight the same way in the Amazing Spider-Man, where it's like a global like a national level threat, where the Kirk Connors is turning people into lizards to make the next race of lizard people, like it's some anime. He does it just to protect Kirk Connors' wife and kid. That's the whole motivation. He does it just so his wife and kid doesn't get hurt, right? He goes off in like the woods of Florida or someplace, almost dies multiple times fighting Kirk Connors, just so that Kirk Connors can have a normal life, can continue to keep that family, glued together. Because his wife does love him, but like, just think if Spider-Man wasn't there, if Kirk Connors was like turning into the lizard and being crazy like over and over multiple times over again, and Peter wasn't there to save them, that marriage would die. That family structure would die. He legit does this to keep that family together, and that's the like sole purpose of him fighting the lizard, which is like the most like wholesome thing.
Mommy! Mommy!
Billy, where's your mom?
Daddy came back and took her away! Down there!
The sewers. Listen, I'm gonna carry you to a neighbor's house where you'll be safe. Then I'll go get your mom and your dad too. Okay?
Okay, don't let anything happen to them. Let me go! Let me go!
Ugh, what a slimy mess. Why can't I be one of those galaxy-hopping superheroes? Why do I end up in the sewers? Ugh. Whoa! You don't find the Fantastic Four in a sewer, or the Avengers. Never have I seen the Avengers in a sewer, or the Defenders. Well, maybe the Hulk. Quit griping, Parker. You know what's really bothering you. You're scared. This lizard creature is powerful enough to tear you limb from limb, but you can't even hurt him, because trapped inside is your friend. But I have to fight him. It's the only way to stop him, to save him.
What Avenger cares about that? Like, how many families get destroyed when Hulk just runs through it, or I don't know, Wanda like doesn't control her bomb and like blows up an entire building, right? When the Hulk Buster and Hulk were like going at it in that one city, right? That's the difference between Spider-Man and all the other characters, and that's not what Tom Holland represents. It takes him all these issues to get to that point where he can actually make those personal sacrifices. Hey man, I can make the sacrifice of people not remembering who I am. My friends keep living on their lives as they personally did. I'll take on the brunt of me not having what I want and getting what I want in my life so that other people can get what they want. That's the whole idea behind Spider-Man, making personal sacrifices. Sacrificing his personal relationships, sacrificing his relationships with his family, sacrificing the amount of money he can make, the financial status he can have, just so to make other people's lives better. Sacrifice. And it takes 3 movies for Tom Holland to make any sort of significant sacrifice that will deem him the ability to actually wear the mantle of Spider-Man with pride and be able to be called Spider-Man, at least in my eyes, right? And that's signified by him making his own suit and not being an extension of Iron Man, bro. This is the first time he has had a normal suit. No more expression eyes or anything. The expression eyes were kind of cool from like a gimmicks perspective, but it just reminded me he's basically Iron Man. He's wearing the Iron Man suit. The Scarlet Spider suit was cool for like a scene or two, but if he's just rocking that all the time, like, no. And my last point, I've been ranting on for like almost 30 minutes now. My last point is that I guess this is a positive, but again, those are really the main negatives. Like I said, other than that, it was a good movie. Definitely the best of the 3. I would still personally put the Amazing Spider-Man series over the MCU, and I would put the original Sam Raimi movies at the top of all 3 of them. So in the order that they were released, the first one, the second one, third one goes first, second, third in that order. But this No Way Home is the best of the MCU Spider-Man. Penultimate. This is the best version of the Tom Holland Spider-Man I think we've seen on screen. So I am happy to see that. Now starting off with Andrew Garfield, that one scene where he goes through the portal and is talking with Zendaya and Ned in his grandma's house, like that just reminded me that I need to go back and rewatch the Amazing Spider-Man series, both the first and second ones, because his banter is unrivaled, bro. Unrivaled by any of the other 2. I love Tobey Maguire. He's still the GOAT. He's still the GOAT, the best Spider-Man. But as far as the best Peter Parker, I gotta give it to Andrew, bro. because his banter is so good. He's such a good actor. His banter hanging on the ceiling, like, I don't need to show you. I'm hanging from the ceiling. I'm like he's like, oh, use your spider tingly thing. It doesn't work on bread rolls. Like, it was so good, bro. He's such a good actor, bro. And then also, like, it just reminded me, like, how good he was. Like, that one scene in the Amazing Spider-Man 2 when he's just going through the city and, like, over the summer break, like, just on his crime wave, stopping crime, basic stuff. And then, like, he takes the time to, like, actually stop the bullies from, like, breaking the one kid's project, right? That's the ultimate version of Spider-Man, right? And that goes back to the idea of, Spider-Man being your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And, like, Tom Holland was never friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, ever, in any of the MCU movies. So, but we already talked about that, right? Andrew Garfield, great banter. I think it just cemented how great he was. And I just remember back in those movies, like, him and Emma Stone were amazing as Gwen Stacy and Peter Parker. I think their relationship on camera was way better than Zendaya and Tom. Zendaya and Tom, they were cute together, but I mean, it's not the same level that Emma and Andrew were at. It hit different when she died, bro. It really did hit different when she died. If Zendaya died, I personally wouldn't really care, because they just don't have the same level of character development. I'm not saying that Emma's was good. It was just better than Zendaya's was and MJ was in this one. It just was better. So, and there's that one. But on to what you guys really care about. Tobey being the best Spider-Man. And he proves he's the best Spider-Man just because, first off, he has the banter. He definitely says some funny things in this movie. I mean, he's proven that already with all the memes that they were able to make of him. From one movie alone. I mean, basically them memeing Bully Maguire into, like, one of the funniest memes I've seen just proves how, like, funny he was in that movie. So that goes without being said. He also proves he's the strongest. First off, when he catches the glider that Tom Holland's about to use it to impale the Green Goblin with, to impale Willem Dafoe with. First off, I mean, you have the scene right before where he's putting his everything into those punches. And first off, he's not beating up, he's not that strong. He's not beating up Willem Dafoe, Green Goblin, like Omni-Man was beating up his son in Invincible. Like, he's not bloodying him. I don't even think Willem Dafoe had a black eye at the end of all that stuff. But you see, like, Tom Holland's pissed off. He's trying to kill this man, putting all these punches in. Honestly, Willem Dafoe is probably just, like, feeding his ego. Like, yeah, because he's like, I'm going to kill you right now. He's like, yeah, you're going to kill me. Like, he wanted him, it was like a masochist or something, wanted to, like, see Peter Parker kill him. He wanted to see Tom Holland go off the deep end and kill him. Because he would win if he did that, right? The same thing with, like, Joker getting killed by Batman. He would win in that case. And Tobey realizes that. So in Tom's Pit of Rage, when he's about to deliver the final blow, Tobey just comes in and catches it and just looks at him like, bro, you're not killing him. We talked about this, Tom. Tom, calm down. We talked about this, Tom. We talked about this. Didn't even break a sweat, bro. Didn't even break a sweat. You're telling me that Tom wasn't trying to kill him. He wasn't trying. No, bro. He was trying to kill him, bro. You're telling me he went from putting all his might in those punches, he's just going to half-heartedly stab him in the chest? No, if he's pissed off, he's angry, like, he's fighting angry. He's seeing red, bro, in that situation. And then Tobey just comes in, swoops in, and just catches the glider like it's no big deal. Like, he didn't even break a sweat, bro. Now he's struggling, like, stop. Tom, stop. You can't do this. He's just like, Tom. Now, what did we talk about in Bible study? Like, it's insane, bro. And then also, just from the level, like, going back to the level that Tom just got disrespected by the villains from Tobey's universe. Like, first off, we just need to acknowledge that without the nanosuit, that this would have been roll credits within the first 25 minutes, because the nanosuit is the only thing that saved Tom Holland from actually not dying to the hands of Doc Ock. He was about to get impaled in the chest with the spike, but the nanosuits from his helmet, from his face mask piece, fused down to his chest plate to block the spike from going through and killing him on the spot, right? That would have killed him, right? He had lost. He was pinned underneath the bridge. He was about to get stabbed in the chest, but then the nanosuit saved him. If he was wearing his cloth suit, he's dead. Roll credits right there, right? And then also he basically, Doc Ock stopped fighting because he's like, wait, you're not Peter Parker. What the hell am I fighting this kid for, right? So right there, um, Toby never got bodied that bad by Doc Ock. Never got bodied that bad. That scene where Doc Ock throws Toby into like that overhang sign on the highway, and then he goes through like 3 cars. Yeah, he also did that in the MCU. I mean, it's not in the MCU. In Toby's Spider-Man 2, where he threw him at the bridge, the overhang bridge over the train, and Toby just like went through the slits and then punched him after when he landed back on the train. So, like, he never got disrespected that bad. And you can't say they're different characters, right? He was taken back, like, this is, when that train fight scene was a couple days before when he was like transported over in the way the MCU works. He was transported when he was at the harbor in the final fight scene of Spider-Man 2, right? So this is still prime Doc Ock. He's not extra old. He's not extra weak or nimble. And it would make it worse if he was weak and nimble and like fought Tom and still bodied him that bad. And then obviously we have Green Goblin, Willem Dafoe, putting him in the dirt, legit putting him through 6 stories of concrete in an apartment building, and then killing his aunt in front of him. Right? Like, no, that did not happen. That didn't happen, bro. That never happened. Heck, Spider-Man punched Green Goblin so hard that he had to pretend like he was back to being normal Norman Osborn just to be able to get a drop on Spider-Man so that he could have a chance of killing him. Because Spider-Man was about to like kill him. Like, he was getting like if we go back to that first movie when they're fighting after he drops the trolley and MJ's saved and they're like fighting over on the side, and Spider-Man takes a grenade to the face, right? Spider-Man's like this, just went boom, just giving him the combos, and then Norman's like, hey Peter, it's me, please stop hitting me, it hurts, just so we can like play possum, just so we can get an upper hand, bro. That's the difference between Toby and Tom. William Dafoe had to play possum to get it to get the chance to kill Toby, right? He didn't have to. He didn't have to do that with Tom. He just laughed in his face and just put him in the dirt, bro. Put him in the absolute dirt, which is why I'm convinced that he was like trying to let Toby or let excuse me, I can't even talk. Let Tom Holland kill him on the last scene on Liberty Island. So, but yeah, that's pretty much that. Cemented that Toby's the GOAT. Tom is the weakest of all of them. Well, I don't know what I want to say. I can't really make an argument that Andrew Garfield's stronger than Tom Holland from like a physicality standpoint. So there's that. But I personally think that I don't know. From a physicality standpoint, I will put Tom over Andrew Garfield. So Andrew Garfield's probably the weakest of all the 3 Spider-Men, from like a sheer brawn standpoint. But every other way, it goes Toby, it goes Andrew, and then it goes Tom. So yeah, that's my review of the movie. Overall, like I said, guys, I really did enjoy the movie. If you go see this with friends, it's definitely worth seeing in theaters. If you're just a casual MCU fan, you're gonna love this movie. If you're a fan like me, where you just love all the original comics and you make criticisms, you're at least going to enjoy the fact that they finally got it right after 3 movies. So, either way, you're going to at least be able to smile at some points of it. I laughed at the movie, so it was fun. It wasn't a waste of money. But yeah, so I would recommend you guys go see it as soon as possible. Maybe wait for it to go on HBO Max or a streaming service like that if you're not really that big into it. But yeah, that's my review. This is probably like a 40-minute video, but hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.